Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Dojo Live. I'm Tulio Siragusa. Today is Thursday, July 1st, 2021, 1st of July. Today we are talking to another awesome guest. And before we do that, I just want to welcome my co-host and co-producer, Carlos Ponce. Hi, Carlos. He's
Pleasure to
joining
be here,
us
as ever, Tulio.
Mexico. It's great to have you. And we're talking to Maju Kuruvilla, who is the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Bolt. And we're going to be talking today about the future of shopping. That's right. And identity power commerce. What the heck is identity power commerce? We're going to find out what that is. And more importantly, what the cookie apocalypse is all about. We're going to talk about some fun topics. But before we do, let's get to know Maju a little bit. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me here, Tulio and Carlos. Great to be here. As Tulio mentioned, I am the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Bolt.com. We are a startup, and I'll speak about that a little bit. Before that, I used to work at Amazon, where I used to lead the global logistics there for around 8 years. I have an engineering background, kind of built a lot of technology and products over a long period of time across a few different companies and domain. And now with Bolt, helping to democratize commerce for everybody. So great to be here.
Excellent. So what is Bolt? What is that about? You said democratizing shopping for everybody. What is that about? What do you guys do?
Yeah. So one of the challenges now people are facing, especially merchants are facing, is how do you provide a really seamless kind of a buying or a checkout experience for their customers? As you see that customers really have changed their expectations when they come for shopping. Like some of the companies, big companies have created this really sleek and fast kind of buying and checkout experience. And so now the consumers are used to it, and they expect that same from everybody else. And a lot of merchants are struggling to kind of provide that kind of a similar experience for their customers. That's where Bolt comes in. We provide a checkout infrastructure or a checkout platform powered by our user network, where we can provide a very seamless one-click checkout experience for our customers. So when you use Bolt, when people come to buy something, you can just buy things with either one click or with as few steps as possible, while having access to a variety of options. And that's what we provide, and essentially for all the merchants with a really big network.
Excellent. All right, let's go right into the topic today, because I'm curious to learn more and see what this is all about. So Carlos, please, let's kick it off.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tulio. And of course, thanks to our guest as well, Maju. So today, we're going to be answering one question. And that question is, can identity-powered commerce help retailers survive the cookie apocalypse? So the topic is going to be the future of shopping, identity-powered commerce. The first thing that I would like to ask our guest today is, why did you choose this particular topic, and why did you feel it was relevant for today's day and age? Let's start with that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Carlos. So what happened when you look at e-commerce, last decade of e-commerce was a lot about centralization. Like there was not a very good e-commerce experience before last decade. Few large companies came and provided a very good e-commerce experience for everybody. So people started buying online, start feeling confident about buying online. And what we are seeing now is that, that decade is coming to an end, and now customers are used to buying more online. They also want more choices and more different experiences. They want to go directly to different brands. They want to have different shopping experience at different places. They just don't want to go to the same place all the time. And so you're starting to see that, and then pandemic hit right now. Obviously, last year, everything changed as of last year, including e-commerce. E-commerce really had an accelerated growth and adoption in the last year during pandemic. Literally, e-commerce advanced 10 years ahead during pandemic. So lot of people started buying online, and a lot of merchants are trying to kind of get into this space. So now, obviously, like I mentioned before, all these merchants have challenge on how do they kind of provide that seamless experience so that customers can continue to come to them and they can engage. And they need identity for it. They need to know the customer to provide a really good experience. You need to know who is shopping, what they buy, what they like, and what's their information, so they can kind of welcome them, personalize for them, and provide a very seamless checkout experience. And a lot of companies have been using a very old technology like cookies to keep track of their customers. And what's happening now is those cookie tracking are getting disabled or eliminated by Google and Apples of the world. They are removing that cookie tracking. So what that means is all these merchants, the way they were kind of tracking all their customers who are using this kind of cookie tracking, they just lose access to that. And so all of a sudden, first of all, we didn't have a good way of tracking all the users and providing a seamless checkout experience. And on top of that, losing this cookie access, and that is what we call the cookie apocalypse. And how are merchants going to deal with that? Now, the good thing is Google provided some relief on that. They said, okay, they might stretch out another year before they actually turn it off, but it's still coming, and people need to be prepared for it. And how do we know that? And for us, the answer is identity-powered commerce, and I'll speak to that.
So definitely interested in learning more about that, because let's just kind of look at how it's done today. So you track cookies, which is how you develop an understanding of certain propensities based on what people are viewing or where they're spending time, right? So you've got some back-end intelligence that figures out, based on that information, what to offer a particular consumer. And then you've got the big tech companies that are literally listening to our conversations, and through words figure out what you might need, and they line up advertisers with those products. But if you're a commerce company, an e-commerce company that's not the big tech, Amazons, etc., how do you compete when the cookies are gone? How does that work?
Answer to that is the topic of today, which is the identity-powered commerce. Let's stop relying on these outdated technologies for identifying customers, but rather create identity for those customers, create accounts for those customers, so that now there is an official account. They can log in, they can find out all about them, and it's no more dependent on a cookie. It's customer consent based. They know the account, they can track everything. Now the challenge here is, while that is a good idea, Tulio, users or customers don't want to go and create accounts everywhere. Right?
I mean, that makes sense if you're Facebook or a big tech company that already has that information. But if you're just a mom and pop shop entering in the e-commerce space, how does that work?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question here. Is people don't want to create that username and password everywhere. Even if they create, nobody's going to remember it. And how many places are you going to create? So how do we solve that? And that's where Bolt comes in, and our identity-powered commerce and our network is going to come in. This is where we allow to create a network of users and share that identity across our network, which means that you create a user account with Bolt, and that is a really friction-free creation experience. It's passwordless, and it's a very friction-free, easy way of creating an account. And once you create in one place, now you can go to any of the merchants that use Bolt, and you can, we share that identity, so the merchant know who you are. You can share with merchant what they need to know, and you can get that one-click checkout experience and all the other personalized experience that come with it. So rather than having to create identity on every single site, Bolt has that network of identity that's created once, that's shared across all the different merchants. And to companies like you said, Amazon has created their own network, but individual merchants cannot create their own. And so this is where we are thinking, how do we help merchants with things that they cannot do by themselves? And nobody's able to create a network by themselves. So this shared network and share the identity is kind of the answer to that.
Maju, I got a
Okay,
quick.
go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, I have a quick question. This is what I envision. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but what is the business model like? For example, what I'm hearing is that you have a network of merchants, and they sign up with Bolt, right? And then the user on this end just logs into Bolt, and then it interacts with the merchant. So where's the business model here? Who's your client? Who's your customer?
Yeah, our customer are the merchants. Like, for us, we are all about helping our merchants to engage with their customers. So our customers are merchants, and we want to provide a really seamless experience for merchants to engage with their customers. So how do you engage with the customer? First, you need to know who they are, right? And so that's the identity piece. And then there is like, how can you like know their information about their payment information, their shipping information, other preferences, so that you can provide a much deeper experience for them. So that, now how do you provide all of that without creating additional friction for customers? Because if you look at checkout, guest checkout doesn't work. Like the conversion rate on guest checkout is really bad. It's like 20% or something. It's not good. So guest checkout is not helpful. So you need logged in checkout, but you cannot create an account by yourself. And so how do we help merchants to have logged in checkout when they don't have to create all the accounts by themselves? And that's where Bolt comes in. And so we kind of, we are their main checkout. So when you go to any kind of e-commerce site, you might see what you call an alternate payment method. Like, there might be like Apple Pay, there might be like other kind of payment options there, but it's their options, right? That it's branded for them, and it's an additional login for doing that. It's an additional security process for doing that. And merchants don't get a lot of data from that and a lot of benefits there, because the customers are owned by, those brands. Whereas when Bolt comes in, Bolt becomes the main checkout. It's branded by the merchants. It's powered by Bolt, but it's branded by merchant. So it's the main checkout. There is no distraction. There is no additional stuff. Customers go through the main checkout, and they are identified and logged in with a seamless experience, and boom, they buy it. And even if a customer coming to a merchant for the first time, and as long as that is a merchant that is on Bolt network, you can just check out and buy things. It's like one click and it's yours.
Okay, so
one more,
ahead,
Tulio, and then I'll pass it on to you. Okay, now on the user side, for example, in my case, I got Samsung Pay here, which I use every now and then. So I have Samsung Pay is very instilled in a lot of the users, in the mind of a lot of the users. How does Bolt go about adoption? Okay, what are you doing in terms of adoption so that the users know more about you? I mean, beyond the marketing, or what sort of efforts are you carrying out in order to increase adoption in the day and age of where there's so much competition? Let's call it like that. Yeah. So how do you go about that?
That's a great question. We don't go to consumers directly to create the accounts. We go through the merchants, right? Like, and again, that's why I said our customers are merchants. Like when people, when users come to their merchant, when they check things out, when they check out something, we allow them to create an account on the Bolt network as part of that checkout process. So, and so when they create that, we also allow that user to create an account on the storefront, and we allow them to create an account on the Bolt network. So as more people, when more merchants use Bolt as a checkout, their main checkout, and as more people check out through there, it creates more accounts for Bolt.
Okay, so I'm listening to you, and I'm like, this is kind of like Instacart for food shopping, right? When you establish an Instacart account, but it's different because Instacart requires me as the consumer to first sign up in order to gain access to the network of merchants. So it's not meeting me where I am. I have to go to them and sign up. Whereas what you guys are doing, let's see if I understand this correctly, you're meeting the consumer where they're already shopping, right? So if that merchant is now a member of the Bolt network, when they go to check out, I don't know if they click a button or what they do, it automatically creates an account. And then in the future, when they visit future Bolt merchants, they automatically have that information. But also those merchants benefit from the visitor who's somehow tagged as a Bolt network member. How do you then see as a new merchant that that user's a Bolt consumers without cookies? How did they identify that?
Yeah, so you can identify with cookies. That's one way. Without the cookies, what we identify them based on their phone number or email. Like when they put their user, phone number or email, we can know, okay, this user has an account with us, and then we can instantly kind of go through a quick authentication process, and then boom, they are in, and they can kind of get that same one-click experience. So think of it as like the first time a user come to a website, like even without the network, like just think of the checkout experience. A merchant, a checkout cart abandonment is a big problem for all the merchants, right? Like a lot of people add things to cart, but then they don't buy it because the buying process has a lot of friction. Some of that friction is just not having having a good checkout software by itself. Like we have a checkout, kind of an operating system where a merchant can decide how they want to define their checkout, and you have access to every single option. So like it's connected with all the alternate payment providers, it's connected to all the credit card providers. So they have access. When a merchant uses Bolt, they have access to all payment infrastructure. And then we provide a lot of A/B testing options where customers can customize things. They can figure out what they want to put where. And all that A/B testing is built into this checkout platform. So even without the network, Bolt checkout is a that's nicer and sleeker checkout. Just the number of clicks, we obsess over every single pixel on the checkout. This is all we do. So we really go obsess over like, how do we create the most optimal experience for our customers when they want to just check out? Like, where do you place things? Where do you move things around? And so we A/B test things, and outcome of that, all the merchants get. Then merchants can also do their own A/B testing and like figure out, okay, which alternate payment they want to show, and create rules where sometimes they don't want to go, create certain payment options for certain products. All of that they can do. So that's like one option, right? And then that itself create a lift in conversion, and then the network. So as users, first time they come in, they get to create the account. Then every time they come after that, whether it's to the same merchant or any other merchant on Bolt, they have this one-click checkout experience, which kind of created massive lift in conversion for everybody. Now, it doesn't stop there. Right now, when we just talked about the network, and we also enable merchants to have out-of-the-box access to social commerce. We provide out-of-the-box access to things like the omni-channel, where they have physical stores and online. How do you buy online, pick up in store? So there is a variety of things that comes in checkout, which is all packaged together so that merchants have out-of-the-box access to all of it.
Maju, we are approaching the final segment of today's conversation. So before we go to the wrapping up part, I'd like to ask you specifically about Bolt. And now my question is going to be in the context of, for those who are watching, who might be, say, software developers or UX designers who might want to come work for you at some point, because it might happen. My question is, what is important in terms of choosing who to work with? How do you assemble your team? So what's important when you decide who's going to be part of Bolt, and what is the company culture? What is the company culture like? What are the values? So that's what I would be very interested in hearing from you. What you have to say?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Bolt is a very much culturally strong company, and we even published our culture outside so that other people can see, especially other startups can see. We call it the conscious culture. There is and you can see there's a conscious.org website that we created where people can see how exactly we do. So it's a great place to see learn about what is Bolt's culture. And we are very culturally deep like that. So the culture starts from the top and it starts from the beginning. And Bolt was started with a very foundation of a strong culture, and we continue to maintain and document. And now we are democratizing that too. Like everybody can go starting to work remotely, kind of having that writing over talking culture where you don't end up just listening to the loudest voice in the room. You have everybody has an opportunity to write their ideas, and we are all going to read it. We are all going to comment on all the things, and then we are going to make decisions. And that writing over talking is an interesting one, which I feel strongly about, and we follow, and which has been very helpful for us to enable our remote culture. And same way about making decisions, like how do we make fast decisions for a startup? We need to like make quick decisions. So kind of creating frameworks on like one-way doors and two-way door decisions, so that people understand like some decisions you can make really fast because it doesn't matter. You can always come back, reverse that decision. Whereas some decisions, you don't want to make fast because you make those decisions, there's no coming back. So you need to be very thoughtful. So hopefully more decisions are two-way doors and allowing the organization to make those decisions faster from that. But the best place to kind of get a good overview of all of that is go to the conscious.org and see everything about the culture and who the kind of people and the culture what we look for.
All right, thank you.
Sounds like a lot of fun. We'll definitely have to check that out. There's probably a lot of similarity to some of the things we're working on here as well. I had, as I'm listening to you, I started thinking, I wonder what it's been like pitching to investors, right? It's like, well, PayPal's already solved that. Hasn't PayPal solved that a problem already? You pay with your PayPal account. It's got the address and everything in there. What's different? If I could just go back a little bit about Bolt before we wrap up, what's different between you and some of these existing pay platforms like PayPal? Yeah,
so there are quite a few differences, and before that I'll explain that, but also I'll say like e-commerce is growing really, really fast. There's a lot of innovation also happening on the payment side. Like you're starting to see like a variety of payment instruments, whether that's alternate payments like buy now, pay later, or whether payments based on biometrics. There's a ton of new payment options that are coming out. So when we see is like what we see is like the shopping carts and the commerce is growing really fast. Payment options really coming fast. We are at that intersection of commerce and payments. We bring them together, right? We bring the payment and we allow merchants to work with a lot of different shopping carts and work on all of that experience. At the same time, we give access to the larger payment world where you can have all the new payment options. And because we are so focused on this, when we add something, which we are the first one to add whenever something new comes in, every merchant get access to everything. So merchants are like up to date on all the new latest technologies, whether that is payments and also this new like the social commerce I talked about, all the new things that are happening. Customers have access to it. They can advertise in new channels. They can allow people to buy things wherever they see. People don't need to come to their website. They can just buy things when they buy with a single click. All of those things are things merchants didn't have access to before, or unless they spend a lot of time by themselves. And even if they do all of that, they don't have access to the network. So all of those value, like PayPal doesn't do any of that, right? Now, PayPal is purely a payments company. And yeah, sure, they store some of the credit card information and some of the shipping information. However, it's a separate brand. It's a separate kind of a button. It's called an alternate payment. It's not just PayPal. There's so many different alternate payments, but alternate payment conversion is very different than when you are deeply integrated into the commerce network. We are think of like, imagine if PayPal was deeply integrated into the commerce stack and it was not branded and blended into, and it's mainly indexed for helping merchants to engage with their customers. We will be that, right? So the biggest difference here is, are you just a payment service at the end? Like, are you just a wallet that just helps with payment at the end? Or are you deeply integrated into the commerce stack so that you have access to everything, to your inventory, your taxes, your catalog, your pricing, you have coupons. There's a lot more. So when you think of checkout, maybe that's where I place it. Checkout is not just payment. There is loyalty programs, there are coupons, there are discounts, there's variety of taxing issues. There's a lot of split shipment issues. There's buy on, like I said, buy online and pick up in store. I mean, and then there is payments at the very end, which obviously PayPal or so in one way, but it's just one piece. We are solving the entire problem for that commerce, which is what a lot of merchants don't have today. They don't have.
You're taking the merchant's approach versus just dealing with enabling the consumer to make a payment, and that's obviously a gap. So we'll see how that plays out, right? Hypotheses you guys are taking on. Before we go, just one final question for you. This is your first startup, right? You came mostly from bigger companies in the past.
Yeah, so I was at Amazon right before this for 8 years, and mainly kind of. Even though Amazon operate like a startup, it is still a large company, and I'm responsible for managing bigger teams. But before that, I did do what I call a pseudo startup. So I had a healthcare startup. I was the first engineer there, and we built everything from the ground up and helped with reducing the cost of inefficiencies and cost in healthcare and with the transactions between hospitals and insurance companies. And we did that for 10 years, build that, being the first engineer, and then leading the product and engineering and the business for that. And we sold it to Hearst Business Media in 2012, and that's when I joined Amazon. So, and before that, I was at Microsoft. So I always went from large company to kind of a startup setup, then again go to large company. And I feel like large companies allow me to learn to scale, and then startups allow me to be more scrappy and innovative and agile. So it's important to have both muscles. Like just having one kind of make you think one way to do things. I kind of go between them just so that
Yeah, I agree. I always say when you're at a startup, you build the knobs. When you go to a big company, you learn how to tune the knobs, but you don't build the knobs, right? Somebody else built the knobs. So you got the experience of doing both. Congratulations. Yeah. So any words of wisdom you'd have for someone maybe who's on the fence about starting something of their own?
Yeah.
Maybe they got used to turning the knobs for so long they were afraid to build them. What advice would you have for them?
I have two things I would say. Number one, this is the best time to be in a startup. If you look at, I don't know, at least in the last few decades, I've seen, I don't think there has been ever a time which is so right for startup. Like the private capital market is so efficient, maybe too efficient, but it is very efficient, and it's available. A lot of innovations that only large companies could afford before now can be done by small companies, and so there's a lot of opportunities, and so it's a great time to be in a startup. Number two is, take some risk, right? People get, and a lot of people talk to me about this, especially even from larger companies. Like you get so, in a large company, you have the comfort of the company, right? Now you have your job, you feel powerful, you make enough money, money is not a problem, and you continue to grow. So why would I leave any of that and go to a startup? And I think, the reality, what I tell them is this one word or two word or concept. Like when you go from a large company, and if you're really successful there, and if you go to a startup, it's really a two word or. Like if the large companies will always take you back because they want good people. They want people who have experience at startup. They want people who take risks. And so, it's not a big deal. It's not even a risk. Like people overestimate this risk. It's not, I don't think that's even a risk. It's just people just think about it as a risk. So, my take is, it's like I said, 2 points. Great time to be in a startup. I think the next decade is going to be a lot of innovation driven by startups, not by large companies, because large companies are going to be busy dealing with Congress and all the legal stuff and everything, and all the innovations are going to be in the startups. And take some risk, and it's not really much risk. Just have some fun.
Well, thank you for sharing that with everyone. And thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate having you as our guest. We'll have to keep tabs on you guys, see what you do over time. Sounds like an exciting, interesting venture that could solve a lot of problems for both merchants and consumers.
Yeah, we
So,
have we have few, hundreds of merchants using our product. You may not know it because it just says powered by Bolt at the end. And we have more than 7 million user accounts already. We just started last year. So
amazing.
the account, so it's growing really fast. So yeah, do keep tabs on us and
Congratulations.
happy shopping.
Congratulations. That's amazing. It's always great to have the movers and shakers of the industry on the show. What we love is learning about what's emerging, what's happening directly from the people actually doing it. Instead of reading it on a Gartner report, we speak to you directly. So thank you for being with us.
Tulio, do you remember our former tagline, Dojo Live's tagline, the future, right from those creating it?
Exactly. We might have to go back to that title because it's true.
I love that. That's actually, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Exactly. So anyway, just wanted to say this was the last show for the week, and we are going to be, the whole entire Dojo Live team is going to be taking a break for the next 2 weeks. So we will be back live, I think on the 15th is the first show. I'll be back on the 15th.
Yeah, on the 15th. That is correct.
15th of July. But we will have repeats and rebroadcasts. Beatrice, I think you all met Beatrice yesterday. She was one of the co-hosts on the show. Beatrice will hold the fort down with the rebroadcasts of our shows throughout the next couple of weeks. For those of you who are also taking vacation with your families, please stay safe, enjoy yourselves, and thank you for being with us. Thank you for being our audience. Thank you for being our guest. Thank you very much, and we'll see you back live in a couple of weeks.
See you back then. And thank you, Maju, for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting Julio, Carlos. Thank you so much.
Just stay with us as we go off the air, please.
Until next time. Bye-bye.